Hi, gang. It's Patrick.
And Adam.
Coming up on today's episode, we wait in line and reveal our Fab 5 Disney Parks cues. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Adam, stand by Hummel.
Patrick Kauki Crisp Kazuki.
I used to love that cereal as a youngster. I probably still love it, but
You
I'm
still
not
love
allowed.
it for sure, yeah.
I'm not allowing myself to eat it, though, because one box is not one serving, turns out, but it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, but cookies for breakfast, can you get any better than that? You can't. Pizza for breakfast? Why isn't there a pizza cereal?
Ooh, because that sounds horrifying.
Just some pizza and milk? Delicious.
Mm-hmm. Pizza and oat milk.
So good.
Delicious. Adam, however are you right now?
However am I? I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Fantastic for many reasons. I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful day out. Got a run in around the lake.
Very
and
nice.
Someone's birthday is this weekend.
That's
Someone's birthday.
Very true. And as I found out, it's actually Tucker Carlson's birthday tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Yes, May 16th is Tucker Carlson's birthday.
Well, and a little less importantly, it's also your birthday, Adam.
Like Tucker Carlson, I will be wearing a bow tie to celebrate. Mm-hmm.
Good. I usually, it makes sense. I usually, when I think of you, I think of Tucker Carlson for sure.
Absolutely. We are of one mind, me and the Tuck.
Oh, that's an unforgiving nickname. No, can't get past that one.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it is my birthday tomorrow. I'm going to be 42 years old.
Amazing. You don't look a day over 41 and a half.
Thank you so much. I will take that, and I owe it all to L'Oreal, you know? There's been some serums, as I promised, my New Year's resolution. There have been serums, and there have been some lotions and potions all over this face to keep it young and beautiful.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe she's not, Adam. Maybe she's not.
Maybe she spends $1 million on products throughout her life to try to improve what's there.
I love it. I'm all here for it. Well, happy birthday, my friend. You have a gift coming in the mail eventually. It hasn't shipped yet. I don't know why, but I'm looking into it. Someone will be fired.
Good.
To be sure.
Well, that in and of itself is a gift, right? There's the actual gift, and then there's the knowledge. there's the knowing, Patrick, that someone was let go because of something related to my birthday.
That's how it should be. That's how it always should be. So Tweedle's out there. Flood Adam's inbox with as many email messages as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Send wishes, send hopes and dreams, send some nudes, whenever you need to do.
I don't need the nudes. I don't need the nudes. But everything else sounds lovely. Yeah, feel free to reach out and celebrate me.
Celebrate you. This whole episode will be dedicated to celebrating Adam's birthday.
Anything I request during this episode must be done. Okay, so what I say goes.
Got it. We are beholden to Adam's birthday wishes. Well, happy birthday one more time. I was going to say it like every 5 seconds. Happy birthday, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Patrick, last week we talked about A Walk in the Park, Disney's Animal Kingdom. We had our part 2 in which we covered Asia, we covered Africa, we covered Pandora, we covered Rafiki's Planet Watch, and a couple of our Tweedles reached out to us to give us their thoughts. First up, we heard from Derek, who you can find on Instagram at Sing It, My Friend.
Boy who has everything.
He has it all. Derek said, I finally got to visit Asia for the first time last week. Asia is definitely my favorite, and Dino Land is definitely not.
Oh, no.
Partially because I almost peed myself riding Dinosaur.
Fair enough. I have questions for you. You've been to Animal Kingdom before, Derek, but not to Asia. What happened? What happened on your trip? Something horrifying happened to you that you didn't make it to Asia, and we need to know.
You know, what's interesting is that Derek has been to the real Asia before he was in Asia in Animal Kingdom.
Fair enough. Here's my assumption. My assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you went to Animal Kingdom many several many years ago, before Asia was even open, and so it wasn't available to you yet. So that's my hunch, but correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, it's a great hunch, Derek. Let us know. And that dinosaur ride. That dinosaur ride. What a gift that dinosaur ride is in a rather underwhelming land.
Adam hates Dinoland. Moving on, we have Daniel writing to us also from Instagram at Danko Direct. Daniel says, I think we're missing an opportunity to put a brand new Raya and the Last Dragon segment as part of your new Animal Kingdom drag show. Plus, it's in Asia, so winning. Yes. Absolutely correct. I'm ashamed that I didn't even think of that in Quick D last week.
It would be absolutely fabulous to have a tribute to that fantastic film in drag form.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I definitely want to see a drag queen pull off a Sisu outfit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or a tuk-tuk, you know?
Well, there's already a tuk-tuk going on.
It's already happening. It's already happening. Lots of tuk-tuks happening.
Well, thank you to Derek and Daniel for your thoughts on last week's feature segment, Part 2. Patrick, Part 2, we're already done with Animal Kingdom, A Walk in the Park.
I'm sad about it a little bit. I love Animal Kingdom so much. I could talk about it every week, and maybe we will. Maybe we will.
Maybe we're just an AK podcast now.
Gays do the Animal Kingdom.
We'll work on that. We'll massage it.
Working title.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, moving on, Adam, it's time once again for This Week in Disney History. Are you ready, Adam?
Yes, let's talk about things that happened the week of my birth.
It's true, the week of your birth. All of these the same year of your birth. We're starting off 61 years ago.
So rude.
Adam. On May 19th, 1960, Disney's Pollyanna was released. Based on the 1913 novel by Eleanor H. Porter, the film is about the adventures of the orphaned Pollyanna who comes to live with her curmudgeoned Aunt Polly. Now, at the age of 14, this would mark Hayley Mills's first of what would be 6 Disney movies. It was also her American film debut. Her role in the film earned her the honorary Juvenile Academy Award that year, which, incidentally, would be the very last time that award was given out.
They had reached the pinnacle. They were like, Hayley Mills is it. No more of this.
Yeah, fully agree. Thank you, Miss Bliss.
Thank you, Miss Bliss. Patrick, have you seen Pollyanna?
I have seen Pollyanna. It's a charming movie.
I haven't seen it. I'm sure that'll come as a surprise to no one who listens to this podcast. So I'll have to check it out.
Yes, you will have to check it out. I believe there is also an all-black version starring Felicia Rashad that was filmed, I think, in the 80s for Disney.
Oh, yes. That is ringing a bell for sure. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it on Disney Plus, though. I should check that out. I want to revisit that movie.
The original Pollyanna, or did Disney do the remake as well?
I believe Disney did the remake as well with Felicia Rashad, and I want to say it was the girl who played Rudy also in The Cosby Show.
You're kidding.
We should check it out. We should review that if it's available on Disney Plus. We're having a side conversation, everybody, Adam and I, right now.
This is basically just like what we talk about before the actual recording
Yes.
or during a Raw and Untuck. Raw and Untuck?
Mm-hmm. That sounds horrifying.
Raw and Uncut. Oh, my.
It's your birthday. You can do whatever you want, Adam.
You're right. I can say whatever I want on this podcast. I have a few thoughts to express. Okay, so Pollyanna, happy anniversary and or birthday, depending on how you look at it, to Pollyanna.
That's right. Moving on, 77 years ago, on May 19th, 1944, Chewbacca was born in Barnes, Surrey, England, under the real name, of course, Peter Mayhew. Now, the 7-foot, 3-inch actor was working as an orderly in a hospital in England when he became aware of the casting call for a tall actor. Upon meeting Mayhew, George Lucas immediately cast him in the role of Chewbacca. Now, interestingly, this almost never happened, as Lucas originally wanted the 6'6" actor David Prowse to play Chewbacca, but Prowse instead wanted to play Darth Vader, leaving the role of Chewbacca open. Peter Mayhew would go on to play Chewbacca for episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and for the 1978 holiday special and a 1980 appearance on The Muppet Show. Mayhew was replaced by the much shorter, Junius Suetomo, who is a measly 6'11".
They settled. For the new episodes, they really settled.
Those two men are basically two of me, two Patricks. It's a little unsettling. Now, a fun and delightful fact is that while filming the original Star Wars trilogy, in between movies, Peter Mayhew continued working as an orderly at the Mayday Hospital in London. Sadly, Peter Mayhew is no longer with us. He passed away from a heart attack in 2019. But today, and every time we hear that fuzzball laugh it up, we will remember and celebrate Peter Mayhew.
He was the orig Chewbacca, Patrick, and so we have to celebrate him and his contributions and really the mask work. I don't know if a lot of you know, but Patrick and I are theatrically trained, okay? And we've had, I'm assuming you have, Patrick, I definitely have had some classes in mask, and it is tough to not overdo it, but you have to get to a certain level where you can express emotion and reactions in a mask, and that's difficult, and he nailed it.
He nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. There's something really specific. I can actually sort of tell when it's not him in the Chewbacca outfit, because he had this walk down that was sort of Neanderthalish, but still, I don't know, tall and poised at the same time. It was very specific and subtle, and I don't think anyone else quite did it like he did.
Yeah, and now we've got that new prancing Chewbacca, which is just like, what are you even doing?
Yeah, the Chewbacca strut, I think, is what's happening now.
Yeah. It doesn't work for me, no, but...
Fair enough. Well, moving on, Adam, last but not least, 86 years ago, on May 18th, 1935, the Pan Pacific Auditorium opened its doors for the first time in Los Angeles, California. The theater is noted as one of the finest examples of streamlined modern architecture, which is a branch of Art Deco. For over 35 years, it was the premier location for indoor events like concerts, award shows, and even the Ice Capades. Today, the location is a little sad looking, but Disney fans will immediately be able to recognize the building facade because Disney World built an almost exact replica for the entrance of Hollywood Studios.
Beautiful, yes. And replicated in DCA too, right? Like they kind of have the same entrance going on there, and it just immediately, Patrick, we talked about this in part one of our walk in the park Hollywood Studios, but it really does just set the mood right out of the gate or right through the gates, maybe.
Right into the gates.
Right into the gates. Yeah, such a great kind of vintagey retro look. I love the entrance to Hollywood Studios and to DCA.
Yeah, me too. I hope that they don't ever change that because it's so notable. I think, right? It's so specific and really beautiful, and there's really nothing else like it other than the original Pan Pacific Auditorium.
Yeah, let's make a promise to each other right here, Patrick, and to all of our Tweedles. You are the witnesses to this. If they ever do decide to change the entrance to those parks, let's chain ourselves to the entrance to the parks.
I'm with you, 100%. And if we get all of our Tweedles, we'll have 7 or 8 people right there ready to hold our ground.
Yeah, imagine that bulldozer coming at us. You wouldn't dare when you've got 7 or 8 people standing in your way.
Mm-hmm. And probably Miley Cyrus. She'll be on the actual ball that's about to crash into the facade.
Okay, wasn't exactly sure where you were going at first, but now I'm with you.
Yeah, she's a wrecking ball, Adam. She's a wrecking ball.
Hey, you know what? Still tied to Disney, Hannah Montana.
Oh boy, we're off the rails, so let's wrap up this week in Disney history.
Well, thank you, Patrick. As always, some fabulous tidbits from Disney's timeline. And that means, Patrick, we need to head into our segment where you and I talk about news that happened last week.
Just think about it. Things that we're talking about today might be this week in Disney history years from now.
Mind blowing.
Happy birthday.
Some notable changes to Disney Parks pandemic policies. Ooh, that's tough to say. Parks pandemic policies were made last week in line with the guidance issued by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and last Friday's decision by Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings to lift the outdoor mask requirement. Walt Disney World has modified its face mask policy to state that masks are no longer required outdoors. The policy now reads, Face coverings are required for all guests ages 2 and up and cast members. Please bring your own face coverings and wear them in all indoor locations except when actively eating or drinking while stationary and maintaining appropriate physical distancing. Face coverings are optional in outdoor, common areas at Walt Disney World Resort, but are still required upon entering and throughout all attractions, theaters, and transportation. Disney is reminding guests that neck gaiters, open chin triangle bandanas, and face coverings containing valves, mesh material, or holes of any kind are not acceptable face coverings based on guidance from health authorities. So, Patrick, a very notable change. No more masks required in outdoor spaces in Walt Disney World.
Very, very notable. This is going to it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We were texting a little bit this morning because they sort of did this overnight, and I don't envy the cast members today on day one. I think it's going to be very confusing for people to have to put on their mask in some places and take it off in other places. I mean, it's very necessary, and Disney is testing it out and seeing what happens, but I think it's going to be interesting. I'm especially interested in the queues, the outdoor queues. Is that considered part of the attraction? If so, will you have to wear a mask while in the outdoor portion of a queue? Yeah,
in particular, like when you're in an area with switchbacks or something like that, won't it be interesting to see how people respond? I mean, yes, technically they're outdoors, but you're also so close to other guests. My call would be to put on a face mask in a queue, but we'll see how people respond to those kind of situations.
Yeah, people, and to see how Disney responds to that. How are they going to differentiate? Is a queue part of an attraction or not?
We know in Disneyland there hasn't been a change yet to the face mask policy, and I'm assuming that's because Disneyland is much smaller, much more enclosed. Some of those throughways, even in the lands, are very close quarters, so I think it'll be a bit before we see any kind of change to a face mask policy for Disneyland.
Well, I think the state of California's guidance is a much higher percentage. Florida's was 50%, and they did hit 50% vaccinated, which, in my opinion, not enough of a percentage to make that call. But I am not a state official, turns out.
You're not?
Well, I am a stately official, but not an official state official.
Okay, got it. Not an official state official.
Yep.
In conjunction with this new face mask policy, last week, Walt Disney World also announced that due to increased vaccinations and lower COVID case rates, that Walt Disney World has already increased and will continue to increase park capacity. We also learned that Walt Disney World has already begun to reduce the 6-foot physical distancing requirement to 3 feet. Patrick, how are you feeling about that?
Don't understand that call. 3 feet and 6 feet, not much of a difference. If you ask me, I'm interested. Do they mean within the line queues? That's a redundant sentence, but within the queues themselves, are they placing those little markers closer together? I don't quite understand that call.
I'm assuming, yeah, it's in the queues, and I'm wondering now if they're regretting that decision, knowing that face masks are no longer required outdoors now. Are they like, shoot, should have kept it at 6 feet because now we're kind of adding on another layer of complication or potential exposure?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. You're not asking me for my opinion, but I'm going to give you my opinion right now. This feels a little soon. It feels quick. It feels like if you're a runner and you have a sprain and you're 50% healed, you're not going to run a marathon. You're going to still continue to nurse it until you're fully back to health. And this feels like they are running a little too quickly right now with what's happening vaccination-wise in Florida.
I'm going to say speak for yourself on that one. If I'm at 50% and I'm running a marathon, I'm going to go full out. I'm going to run that marathon.
This is why you have no medals hanging on your wall right now, Adam.
Ouch. Ouch. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday. As we announced last week, the Disney College program will be returning this June to Walt Disney World. This year, for the first time, DCP participants can now choose to live in gender-neutral housing. This specific housing unit is an opt-in opportunity, meaning you will only be placed here if you specifically request it, depending on availability. Selecting gender-neutral housing means that you are comfortable sharing an apartment and potentially a bedroom with someone of any gender. Participants who select this option will also be given the option to request a specific roommate, and the apartments will be available in all of the same styles as those in the male or female only apartments. If you have opted into this housing but have not linked with a specific roommate, you will be partnered up with roommates at random. This new housing option is part of Disney's newly installed Fifth Key of Inclusion initiative and is meant to help all DCP members feel welcomed and included.
I love this new option that they're presenting to people, and I love the fact that a major corporation like the Walt Disney Company is recognizing the fact that gender lines are blurred now, right? I mean, the kind of binary way we've been living our entire lives, or being told to live, or, you know, that we believed we had to live, are really no longer the rules, right? Like, there's no need to define life by two genders.
Yeah, I mean, someone's gender identity is only and entirely up to them. It's not up to anybody else to assign you a gender or to tell you where you can use a restroom, where you can live, where you can sleep, etc. This is a huge step forward, and I applaud Disney for being sort of in front of this.
Plus, I love the idea of all the gays and their lady friends living in apartments together. It's very Will and Grace.
Yes, and it'll be up to both Will and Grace to identify however they want to identify, Adam.
Yeah, and hopefully, you know, there's a Karen thrown in there for laughs, because you need the Karen.
Yeah, there's a lot of Karens in Disney. There's a lot.
Last Thursday, May 13th, was a day full of announcements from the Walt Disney Company. First up, it was announced that the upcoming live-action film Jungle Cruise, which was originally slated to open last summer, will debut in theaters and on Disney Plus with premiere access on July 30th. And of course, you know, Tweedles, we are going to be giving a spoiler-free review of that film shortly after it opens.
Assuming it actually opens when they say it will.
Assuming that. Later that same day, Disney held its quarterly earnings call for Q2 2021. I feel so important saying that. And we have learned that Disney Parks lost over $967 million in the second quarter. Disney Parks experiences and products revenues for the quarter decreased 44% to $3.2 billion, just a mere $3.2 billion, and segment operating results decreased $1.2 billion to a loss of $406 million. I don't know what I just read. I really have no idea.
I do actually question. I wonder. I should do the homework for myself and read into it, whether or not they are saying this is that amount less than what last year was, or is this under what they projected for this year, or this quarter, I should say.
Yeah, figure that out and let me know.
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
Not too much was reported regarding Disneyland, which recently reopened. When talking about the replacement for the now defunct annual pass holder program, CEO Bob Chapek referred to the in-development replacement as the, quote, frequent visitor program, end quote. Likely not the name for the program, but just an interesting tidbit. Patrick, could it be called the FVP?
I certainly hope so.
As for Disney Plus, we learned that as of the end of March, Disney Plus had reached 103.6 million subscribers, falling short of expectations set at 110 million. And regarding upcoming films, Disney announced a new tack when it comes to films meant for theatrical release. Two of Disney's upcoming live-action films, Free Guy and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, will be released exclusively to theaters for 45 days. After those 45 days, they may also go to streaming services, including Disney Plus. No word yet if there will be a charge for those films after the 45-day theatrical stint on streaming services like Disney Plus. Upcoming films including Cruella, Black Widow, and as I mentioned, Jungle Cruise will still be released simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus with Premiere Pass access. And Patrick, as a bit of good news to wrap up this news story, Chapek noted in a CNBC interview following the quarterly earnings call that 80% of cast members recalled have returned to jobs in Disney parks.
Well, that is exciting. I enjoy that news. Thank goodness there's some silver outlines to to this a little bit budget unfriendly news story.
Yeah, glad to hear that cast members are willing to return and happy to return, and it'll be great to see them when we can all go back to a park when we feel comfortable doing so.
Yes, give them all virtual high fives. Tweedles, the King of New York, has returned. That's right. The Lion King will be one of the first shows to return to Broadway. The show will reopen this September 14th at the Minskoff Theater, and the following week, on September 28th, Aladdin will return to Broadway in the New Amsterdam Theater. Tickets to both shows are on sale now. With the return of these shows, and hopefully many more, Disney on Broadway is offering a host of benefits to returning guests, offering flexibility in what's sure to be a period of adjustment as we slowly start to re-enter this whole new world. Adam.
Oh, Patrick.
I had to do it. I had to. Now, first up, Disney will pay 100% of the Ticketmaster service and order fees on performances through August 7th, 2022. Guests will also be able to exchange or even cancel their tickets at no charge up to and including the day of the performance. Disney will also be introducing a Double the Magic 2-show package, offering a ticket to both Aladdin and The Lion King starting at just $149. This option allows you to purchase on behalf of multiple guests and allows you to select your performance date. If you don't know which date you'd like to attend just yet, you can still purchase the tickets at that price level and select your dates later. Again, Disney will cover the cost of any service fees when purchased through Disney or through Ticketmaster. The price you see listed is the price you will pay. And again, you can cancel your ticket or exchange it for another date at absolutely no cost to you. Both the New Amsterdam and the Minskoff Theater will, of course, be following New York State and CDC guidelines to ensure the safety of all actors, production staff, theater employees, and audience members. Both theaters plan to remain flexible and adapt to health protocols, including face coverings, health screenings, air filtration and ventilation, and cleaning and disinfection of the theater. Beyond Broadway, it should also be noted that the North American tours for both The Lion King and Frozen will be among over 20 Disney theatrical productions resuming their tours in 9 countries around the world this year.
Wow, Disney is being incredibly accommodating to guests who may want to take in a show.
Yeah, again, Disney just ahead of the pack, ahead of everybody else on Broadway right now. A couple other shows like Hamilton, I believe, are opening on the same day that Disney is, but I don't believe they are offering the same packaging and the same flexibility, at least not at the level that Disney's offering right now.
And I love the fact that they're offering like 2 shows for a very, very affordable price.
Such a smart idea. I hope this continues going forward. It feels like they are in a great position to start sort of playing around with what they can do with tickets and how Broadway might look going forward. And they just want to get people in the seats, right? They want to make sure that people can afford to enjoy these amazing shows now.
They should give away little bottles of hand sanitizer at the door for each show. And like for the Aladdin one, it should come in a little lamp. And for the Lion King hand sanitizer, it should be in that mango that Rafiki smashes open. Like, you know, I just theme it out, Disney. Play around with it.
I love it. It's your birthday, and I'm going to make that happen, Adam.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Disneyland has begun testing a virtual queue on Indiana Jones Adventure as a means to reduce the length of the socially distanced standby queue for the popular Adventureland attraction. According to a May 10th The Orange County Register article, the temporary measure is it really temporary? Is meant to alleviate foot traffic pinch points in front of the attraction that reopened last month at limited capacity after its 13 month coronavirus closure. Disneyland has been using the upstairs Jungle Cruise queue as an overflow line for Indiana Jones Adventure, while the shuttered water ride undergoes an extensive makeover to remove outdated cultural depictions. The temporary Indiana Jones Adventure virtual queue is similar to the system used with the popular Rise of the Resistance attraction in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Visitors will be able to access the Indy virtual queue through the Disneyland app, but don't expect the Indy virtual queue to be in use all day like the Rise virtual queue. Disneyland anticipates using a hybrid of virtual and standby queues for Indiana Jones Adventure. Got that, everybody? That means you will want to check the Disneyland app to see which queue is in use on Indiana Jones Adventure. It also means you should check the Indy app page throughout the day to see if the virtual queue is turned on, so you can use the system like a de facto FastPass, which obviously isn't in use during the phased reopening of the parks. Disneyland visitors can be in both the Indy and Rise virtual queues at the same time, but they can only use each virtual queue once per day. Disneyland hasn't announced plans to use the virtual queue system on any other attractions, but Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion would be good candidates. Both of the New Orleans Square attractions have long, socially distanced queues that weave their ways throughout the land at peak periods. So, Patrick, this kind of goes back to the story regarding physical distancing in Walt Disney World. You know, as we talked about, Disneyland is much more compact, and so they're kind of having a hard time managing these long queues right now and where they're placed in certain lands.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be interesting going forward. I think my hunch is that Disney is going to find that virtual queues is going to be the way forward. I think people are just not going to want to wait in crowded lines anymore, at least not for a while. I don't think people's comfort level, rightfully so, mine isn't, is there right now to wait in a crowded line.
Yeah, I just question the fact that Disney is saying this is just a temporary measure, but you have to believe that they're testing, right? I mean, they would want to use this as an opportunity to test a potential workaround for rides with very long lines or rides that are always busy.
Yeah, I think calling it a temporary measure just gives them a safety net of, we are going to change this very likely. We're just trying to figure it out right now as we go, much like this podcast, you know?
I was just about to say, I bet a lot of our Tweedles wish we had said this is a temporary measure, this podcast.
It absolutely is. Oh, hello, Adam.
Oh, hello, my friend.
Again, happy birthday to you.
Thank you. You've really been leaning on that quite heavily throughout the episode.
Yep, there's no mistake that it's your birthday. I want to make sure that we are catching everyone who skips forward to the main segment to realize that it is your birthday, in fact.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All bases are covered. Adam, today's episode feels a little bit appropriate given a lot of the news that we've had today with social distancing measures being taken away and added back in, and virtual queues happening throughout both Disney World and Disneyland. And today, we are talking all about queues within the parks.
That's right. The stars aligned. We had actually planned this feature segment before all the news came out, so we are in sync with the universe, Patrick.
We really are. Just this one time, it finally happened for your birthday, I imagine.
That's right. It will never happen again, Tweedles. This is your one and only chance to see pure perfection on this podcast.
That's right. Until next year, on your next birthday.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what happens then.
No pressure. So today, of course, Tweedles, we are doing another Fab 5 episode all about our Fab 5 queues in the Disney parks. Our Fab 5 episodes are named after the OG Disney Fab 5. That's Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto. And we are going to list from our least favorite, but not least favorite, our not top favorite, all the way to our top favorite.
That was pure perfection, the way that just spilled out of your mouth. Yeah, it's just a countdown, right, of our top 5 cues.
It's a countdown. Yeah, absolutely. We love all of these cues, and we're going to put them in order of how much we love them.
It's really interesting building this segment, Patrick, in that, first of all, it's very difficult. There's a lot of great cues that are in Disney parks, but also the importance we place on cues now and how they help tell the story that the Imagineers are trying to tell us. It really has changed when you look back at the opening of Disneyland and then at Walt Disney World as well, how cues have developed since the opening of the parks.
Yeah, I surprised myself when I was making my list. I I jokingly said to you when we were coming up with this Fab 5 list that it was going to be really easy, like very little thought required. And that couldn't have been less the case. I was like, oh, wait, which one do I have to eliminate now? Because I had a lot on my list. Turns out there's a lot of really wonderful cues within Disney. And like you were saying or alluding to, a lot of these cues are just as important as the attraction themselves or get you ready for the attraction. It's all part of one show now for many different attractions and cues.
Yeah, and depending on how you feel, some cues are even better than the attraction itself.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I imagine it's on at least one of our lists.
Yeah, so this will be a fascinating conversation. Patrick, who is kicking us off?
Well, I think it's your birthday, Adam, so I believe you should have the honor of letting us know your number 5 favorite cue in Disney.
I'll do it. Thank you for this tremendous honor. My number 5 choice for Fab 5 cues is Peter Pan's flight in Walt Disney World.
Who would have thought it?
Who would have even thought that this cue would be on the list? Now, bear in mind, prior to the fall 2014 redo of this cue, this would not have been on my list because it was a switchback cue. And I recall going as a child just being, oh God, so hot and sweaty because it was part outside, it was part inside, but like in an old timey style, again with those switchbacks. So extremely uncomfortable. But now, Patrick, the cue is an absolute delight with incredible theming. For those of you who have not been through it, it is basically like you're walking through the Darling house, and it is quite charming.
Quite charming. And yeah, you're right. The queue before was nothing short of a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, it really was a Sophie's choice. I don't know. Should I have said that? But I'm going to keep it. Of, do you want to stand in this super hot, sweaty line for an attraction that's like a minute and a half long? Is it worth it? But now you get the added benefit of air conditioning, a darkened space, and some really wonderful visual effects that you get to play with as you wait in line.
Yeah, really wonderful. I would say, at the time at least, groundbreakingly innovative in what they were doing. I think specifically part of the shadows that you create are a little bit reminiscent of the hitchhiking ghost effect that's on the Haunted Mansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it does really prepare you for the ride, and you do get more of a sense of the coziness and, again, charm and whimsy of the Darling house. It feels like such a great kind of prep for the ride itself.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interestingly basically the first 10 minutes of the movie of Peter Pan.
Yeah, it really is. And this may be an instance where, for me anyway, that the queue kind of overshadows the ride itself. I mean, I've been on the ride so many times. It is a classic attraction, beloved by many, but the queue is just so stellar and so charming. And again, is that kind of theatrical entrance to a ride that is also in many ways very theatrical, but the way they've set this up is just phenomenal.
I would agree. I would say at the very least, it absolutely enhances the attraction itself or adds to it. It pluses it for sure.
That's the way to say it. It makes it a more worthy experience. It makes it more worthy of your time if you've been on it several times because there is just so much to do in that queue.
Agreed. I love this choice. Well done, sir.
Thank you so much. Patrick, that takes us to your number 5. Lay it on me.
I'm going to lay it on everybody. My number 5 is the Haunted Mansion queue.
Oh, now, is there a specific park you're focusing on, or is it both?
Such a good question. I actually took all of my cues from Disney World. So every queue I'm going to talk about is in Disney World. So the Haunted Mansion in Disney World specifically is my number 5, Fab 5 favorite queues.
I love it. You know I'm a Haunted Mansion fanatic.
Fanatic. Now, as many people know, Disney World doesn't have a ton of outdoor queues, and the ones that do wrap around outside are usually just sort of railings and ramps and switchbacks, like you said. But the Haunted Mansion has a full murder mystery to solve right away with the Dredd family busts at the beginning, and of course the full graveyard that you go through to get to the mansion doors. There's really not a lot more to be said about this other than if you've seen it, you've seen it. It's amazing, but it's pure Disney Imagineering fun. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And again, ahead of its time. I mean, the way they set up these kind of interactive elements, you know, with the musical instruments you can kind of activate and the fun sea captain that spits water, you know, things like that just enhance this experience so much more and make it so much more enjoyable while you're waiting to get on the attraction itself.
For sure, absolutely. You could spend a few hours here, I would say, like reading all of the gravestones and finding new secrets in the queue, like the Bride's Ring or the Madame Leota gravestone, which creeps me out every time I see it. And there's nothing funnier than watching people get surprised with the spray from the water in Captain Culpepper's tomb. Cracks me up every single time. It's also really, you could say that this queue is a love letter to Disney Imagineers as well.
Yes, with several of the Imagineers noted on the gravestones.
Exactly. And then, of course, once you're inside, the stretching room, iconic, right? And I consider that part of the queue because you're still in line before you get onto the attraction itself. Beautiful. The wallpaper leading into the indoor queue, iconic as well. Never has there been so much art created based on a Disney queue, I think, than the Haunted Mansion.
That's a great point, Patrick. And you also bring up a valid point in noting when does the ride begin and when does the queue end? And that was a problem I had with a lot of these that I was kind of considering for this list. Like, you know, when does the experience begin and does that then shorten the queue or make part of the queue not the queue? It's very confusing.
It is very confusing. I think we'll probably mention a few of these in our also rans after we go through our full list of why some of the more amazing queues for some people didn't make it onto our lists.
That's right. And if we talk about Disneyland's Haunted Mansion, that queue is actually more of an extended experience where you're walking through more of the mansion as opposed to Walt Disney World where you're on the ride for more of the mansion.
Yeah, there's a lot more art, I think, to look at on the walls. Now, I've only gotten to experience the Disneyland Haunted Mansion when it was The Nightmare Before Christmas, so I couldn't really comment on what it's like during normal times. That's why I specifically chose the Disney World version.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, but it's interesting. It's interesting to talk about where does the ride begin and where does the queue end. Anyway, fantastic choice. Love the Haunted Mansion. Love the queue. I approve.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, let's move on, Adam, to your number 4.
My number 4, also in Walt Disney World, although there is a Disneyland version of this attraction as well, I'm choosing Pirates of the Caribbean.
Ooh, fascinating. Tell me all about why.
I am happy to do it. So the queue opened with the attraction on December 15th, 1973. And I think this may kind of weigh more heavily in the nostalgia factor for me, but I think that this ride in particular in Walt Disney World was one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, that really seemed to set up theming for the queue and really kind of take you into the world of the ride before you got on the attraction itself. I love that, first of all, it's covered. Thank you for covering us from that hot Florida sun. But once you get into like the actual fort itself, it's so cool and dark and the story's being set up. You know, there's some great theming going on. There's some great sound effects. So it really does prepare you for what you're about to experience. And I think that little gay Adam, as a child visiting Walt Disney World, it really spoke to him to know that we were being kind of tunneled into this world before we got on the attraction.
Yeah, for sure. As you were saying, it seems like, I can't, guarantee this is exactly what happened, but it feels like this was an instance where Disney started thinking, we have to prepare for really long lines, and we don't want to have to see the line from outside of the attraction. We want to make you think that once you get in, you're going to go right on the ride. So it's a little bit of a trick, but it makes total sense. It keeps people off of out of the hot sun, like you were saying. And then they also said, well, if we're going to do that, then we're going to do it. We're going to go for it, and we're going to build this enormous cavern that leads you onto the ship and tell a story while you're going into it. So yeah, you're right. I think this is one of the first instances of Disney really preparing you for a ride as you're waiting to get on the ride.
You're full of great points today, Patrick. That point about not knowing how far the queue extends into the actual building itself is so smart. And Disney was so smart to do that because you are deceived by that. Not that queue is incredibly long once you're in the actual building. There's that outdoor area, in Walt Disney World where you can kind of see the switchbacks a little bit. But once you're actually going through the tunnels of the fort, it's quite a fast trip through that queue. But that's a great point. Yeah, tricking the guests into thinking that the wait is not that long.
Yep. Genius and mean at the same time.
Absolutely. Yes. But the theming in that area, again, so great, really prepares you for the ride. The Disneyland ride, Pirates, is my preferred Pirates, but the queue, when it comes to the queues, Walt Disney World did it better.
They did. And what a great soundtrack, too, to that queue.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Love it. Totally sets you up for the experience.
For sure. Well done. Excellent choice for number 4.
Thank you. That takes us to your number 4. What is it going to be, Patrick?
Well, we have our first repeat of the day, Adam. Peter Pan's Flight is my number 4 queue. And I want to be clear, I do love Peter Pan's Flight. I don't believe it made my top 5 dark. Did we do a dark ride, Fab 5, yet?
I don't know if we have done a dark ride.
Okay.
Fab 5.
Well, if we did, or if we do, it didn't make, or it won't make my my top 5 dark ride rides in Disney. But the queue, ironically, absolutely makes my Fab 5 list. It's a classic, right? As you said, it's so lovely and it's so beautiful, and the color scheme, that sort of vibrant pastel color scheme that they have is straight out of the movie. They paid close attention to make you feel like you are actually stepping into the movie, which is really, really lovely. I don't know a lot of other cues that make you actually feel like you're in the cartoon itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's quite a feat, too, to take that 2D world and, bring it into our world and have us believe that.
And I could watch the Tinkerbell fly through the bedroom all day long. It is so joyous and fun, and it just gives you something to look at every inch of the way when you're inside of the darling house. I love it. It's beautiful. Everything you said holds true for me as well. So yeah, number 4, Peter Pan's Flight.
Fantastic choice. Setting up that story. Love it. That takes us to my number 3. My number 3 is a new attraction, not the newest, but it is one of the newest attractions, and it is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run in both Disneyland and Walt Disney World.
I just experienced this queue for the very first time on my last trip this April.
Yeah, great point. It can be easily missed if you choose single rider for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. This is, as I said, both in Disneyland and Walt Disney World. The Disneyland version opened May 31st, 2019. I can't believe 2019 seems like a lifetime ago, but it does. And the Walt Disney World version opened in August 29th, 2019. And what I love about this queue is the payoff at the end of the queue, and that is that you get to experience the inside of the Millennium Falcon while you're not on a ride. Obviously, there's the ride portion too, but it's so cool to be able to walk around the kind of common area of the Millennium Falcon and see the chessboard and see a lot of the mechanics. It just totally makes the line worth it.
Oh, yeah. Photo opportunity, everybody. Get out your cell phones while you're in that queue, and specifically in that holding room.
And, even before that, the way it sets up your experience, the fantastic views of the Falcon as you're kind of climbing that ramp, and the way it sets up introducing you, or me anyway, and I would imagine a lot of guests, to Hondo Ohnaka. I was not familiar with that character. I kind of had an idea based on the research I was doing about the ride before it opened, but I didn't really know what to expect. And there's that fabulous animatronic that kind of introduces you to what your mission is going to be.
It's fantastic. It is so lifelike. I can't. It's a true trick of the eye. They're doing amazing things just within the queue itself. That's another example of a queue that I think was much more impressive for me than the attraction itself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The queue is well worth the wait, and while the ride may be a lot of people's cup of tea, it's great to be in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. I found the ride a little bit distracting. I wasn't sure where I should be looking or what I should be doing, or, it was just a lot going on. But what makes it so worth it to me, and I think I even said this on my trip report after going to Disneyland to experience it, I would just love a walkthrough of the Millennium Falcon. Like, that is what's worth it to me. So that's why this queue is my number 3 choice.
Yeah, if they could create more of a Swiss Family Robinson treehouse experience for the Millennium Falcon, that would be really interesting.
For sure. I think a lot of people would really appreciate that. I'm just not a gamer, and that attraction does seem very teed up for those of you who may be gamers. I totally get it. And the graphics are amazing, the experience is very fun, but for me it's all about that queue.
All about that queue.
That's right. So that's my number 3 choice, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run in Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Patrick, give me your number 3.
My number 3 might be a surprise. I'm going to go with Muppet Vision 3D.
Ooh, this is a surprise. Tell me why.
I love this attraction. First of all, if you're a Muppets fan, though, the queue, the lobby, and the pre-show for Muppet Vision 3D is maybe as equally entertaining as the show itself. It really is a show in and of itself. Of course, it doesn't happen often, but right now, with social distance queues, you can find yourself using the outside portion of the line, which wraps around the side of the building. Now, here is where you're going to find these really amazing recreated famous movie posters using the Muppets as the actors in the movie. If you haven't been on the outside of the building, go see these posters. They are hilarious. They're so detailed, and they're almost exact replicas. For instance, there's a Pirates of the Caribbean poster where it's the original one, I believe, where it's just a portrait of Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow, and it's Kermit instead, but fully in costume and makeup. It is outstanding. I don't know how long they took to get that shot, but it's hilarious and worth it for me.
Yeah, well, Kermit is notoriously difficult to work with to begin with, so... Notoriously.
Yeah. So also, all of the outside vents and fans and pipes on the perimeter are designed to look like Muppets, but sort of a craft version of Muppets with like the googly eyes and foam cutouts for ears and teeth. Super clever. I have to imagine that cast members and Imagineers had the best day ever creating the outside portion of that queue.
Yeah, it's really fun to see how the Muppets color styling influences that queue and the outside of the building as well.
Yeah, it's really outstanding work. And then, so as you make your way inside, again, make sure you look at the sign right at the beginning that says the key is under the mat. And if you lift up the mat, the key is there, which is just like the starting point of all these amazing, funny Muppet jokes that are happening within the queue itself. One of my favorite ones is that there's a menu on one of the walls, and it says something like, soup, 10 ounces, $4, 5 ounces, $6, no soup, $10. Makes me laugh every single time. It's such a classic Muppet joke. It's just amazing. So then we get into the holding room, right, which is the pre-show room, which everywhere you look here, you're going to find Muppet memorabilia, funny jokes on the walls, Muppet puns. It's a full-on Muppet nostalgia and Muppet humor love letter, basically. It's absolutely beautiful. But I implore all of you to make sure you're watching that pre-show, which takes place across 3 TV screens in the front of this little lobby that you're in. They're all interconnected, and at various times during the show, all 3 screens will make up 3 different views of the same scene. It's Muppet magic, and I love it. It's hilarious. And basically what you're watching is the Muppets getting ready for the show you're about to see, sort of a backstage look at all of the antics. And I have to believe that the pre-show was just as time-consuming and expensive to make as the actual Muppet Vision 3D show. For my money, it's just as entertaining and just as funny. So yeah, for me, the queue and the lobby and the pre-show are what I love best about the Muppets in general. It's just that good, clean, earnest fun. You're absolutely part of the joke in watching the Muppet gang try so hard to be entertainers and failing 90% of the time, but they never do it quietly, right? The Muppets are just always big and loud and wrong and strong, and they make mistakes, which is so endearing about them. And it fully is reminiscent there in the queue leading up to the show.
Yeah, I think about that holding room and like the soundscape that is so successfully done in there. Like you know where they are at any given moment, even if you don't see them.
Yeah, you'll hear like a stampede of Muppet footsteps, right, running from one end to the, and it's hilarious. It's pure Muppet magic. It's Muppets at their best, I think.
That's an attraction that a lot of people have been saying needs an update, and it seems like it would be relatively easy to do. I say that as a complete layperson, oh, it's so easy, just do it. But, when you're talking about filmed segments, it's not like you need to revamp the theater at all. It's really just about refilming those segments and giving us something fresh in that regard.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I know that it would be hard to do emotionally because I believe it was the last thing that Jim Henson worked on before he died. And so it's sort of that last love letter to Jim Henson as well. So it would be sad to see go, but I could see them updating the movie for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's like Jim Henson said, though, the Muppets will never be finished. To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Mm-hmm. I think that was Walt Disney, but I can't be sure.
No, it was Jim Henson. Okay. So there you have it. That's an excellent choice, Patrick, and one I didn't even think about, but that is absolutely a standout cue and such, as you said, a love letter to something we all grew up with.
For sure. I absolutely adore it, and the Muppets themselves.
Yes, yes, yes. More Muppets, please. All right, that takes us to our number 2 cues in our lists of Fab 5 cues. My number 2 choice is back to Disneyland, Indiana Jones Adventure, Temple of the Forbidden Eye.
This almost made my list as well.
Talk about game-changing cues. Holy moly, Patrick. This one really set the bar quite high with its interactivity. It opened on March 4th, 1995, along with the ride. And that cue is so phenomenal in what it provides you. I mean, obviously, there's the aesthetics of it, which are just gorgeous. You feel like you're in an Indiana Jones movie. You feel like you're in a temple, but also there's things for you to do, right? Like there's hieroglyphs you have to translate. There's wonderful sound and visual effects set up. Those old-timey movies they created that set you up for not only how you need to buckle yourself into the ride vehicles, but also give you a great sense of the story and what's happened up until the point before you get on the ride is all just so wonderfully done, so wonderfully themed, and also incredibly eerie and exciting. Like it really does set you up so well for the excitement of the attraction.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I applaud those film strips that help you sort of understand what you're about to do, sort of get into the ride and buckling your seatbelts. It's so specifically that old-timey news strip that, where you'll be filming somebody doing something and then they look directly into the camera and wave and give. It's so funny. It's so earnest and yet hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, I love that kind of like news of the world kind of moment that happens there. And it is setting you up not only for where you are, but when you are, right? Which is very important because it could easily have been a modern adventure. You could easily be confused by the fact that, well, yes, you're in Disneyland, you're in the year 2021, but it does transport you back to the time you need to be in to fully appreciate this attraction.
I think the reason why it didn't make my list is those moments like the film strip, and there are definitely these amazing like wow factor moments within the queue, but the queue is so long and so expansive that sometimes you're just looking at a cave wall, though absolutely detailed and beautiful, but sometimes it can get a little bit monotonous because the queue is so long, rightfully so, because they knew they were going to need a very long queue to get people through it. But I think that maybe just knocked it down just a little bit for me.
That's a valid point. I will allow it, even though it's my birthday. You are right, though. There are some of those moments where you are just going through a cavern or like a cavern tunnel. And so it can be very similar. But the great news is that the Imagineers have something on the horizon for you to either do or watch or hear or smell. It's just very clever the way they've kind of set it up. So along that path, though, yes, there are areas that will appear repetitive. There are moments then that break that up and make it something really special.
Yeah, there are times where you're like, I've been here before, haven't I? Did I just go in a circle?
Yeah, they wind you through there very successfully, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, great choice. It's really beautiful. And again, a great soundscape as well. What they're doing there with lighting is so interesting too, especially when 1995 wasn't a million years ago, but it was pretty groundbreaking for that time.
Yeah.
I would say.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was a standout for Disneyland at that time. A great addition. The attraction obviously is amazing, but the queue is also amazing, and that's why it's my number 2 choice, Indiana Jones Adventure, Temple of the Forbidden Eye. And Patrick, that means it's time for your number 2.
I'm so frightened. But actually, your voice may fit into my number 2, Adam. I'm going with the Tower of Terror.
Oh, Patrick, what an excellent choice.
Thank you. Again, specifically, well, I guess there only is one Tower of Terror now in Disney World, now that it's the Guardians of the Galaxy in Disneyland. But I really love every single thing about this queue. From the moment you walk through those huge gates, walking up through the winding hotel gardens, it's absolutely beautiful outside, into the stuck-in-time Hollywood golden era hotel lobby. I desperately want to walk through that full lobby and sit on the furniture and look through all the props and flip through all the books that are there, because I imagine there are an absurd amount of props in that room that no one ever really sees. It's so detailed and beautiful. And it's a shame, I think, that you don't actually spend much time there anymore before you go into the pre-show rooms, both of which, again, are a set decorator's dream. Those holding rooms where the movie plays before you go on the ride, they're just chock-a-block full of Easter eggs from Disney nostalgia, also from the Twilight Zone episodes. It's really quite remarkable what they're doing in there. And then even in the basement, it's so cool. It's so spooky. It's so well designed to look so run down and rickety. It really tricks you into thinking that you're legitimately about to get on a sketchy elevator, right? It fully sets you up for what's about to happen to you.
Yeah.
I think this queue, right, it's just so well done. It really tells a complete, from step 1 to the last step after you're off of the ride itself, it tells a complete story every single step of the way.
Yeah, it is so well done. It is an exceptional queue. So exceptional. I'm just going to, spoiler alert, drop the fact that this is my number 1 for Fab 5 queues.
Well,
and
there we go.
You're absolutely right, Patrick. From the moment you pass through those gates and that eerie music, that eerie kind of slowed down 1930s music, they totally set you up for this attraction. The overgrown garden you walk through before you get into the hotel, the dusty lobbies, cobwebs, it's all set up so meticulously, so perfectly for this attraction. And then, Tweedles, come on. Even if you've been on this attraction a million times, you cannot tell me you don't poop your pants a little bit every time you enter that boiler room kind of basement area. It is so terrifying. And again, the soundscape in that area with those kind of like deep bellowing, I don't know what it is, the boiler making those noises. Is it supposed to be something else making those noises? So terrifying, so creepy, and sets it up perfectly for the attraction itself. So this is a great choice, Patrick. It is theming to the gods.
Yeah, it's definitely Disney theatrics, I think, at almost its finest. It's so beautiful, and there's something romantic about it, even though it's horrifying. There's still something really beautiful about it too.
Yeah, because of that era, that kind of Hollywood glam era, and that then with a layer of time and a layer of disturbing factors kind of placed on top of it, make it just that much more creepy.
For sure. It's the perfect opening act to your favorite band,
Oh, yes, that's a great way of putting it. It is so well done, and I think is a great example of keeping a queue true to the attraction without distracting you from what you're about to experience. You know, it's not about keeping you busy necessarily. It's just about telling you the story from the moment you cross through those gates.
Yeah, and you could argue that even before you cross through the gates, the visual of the hotel itself with its burnt out lighting and everything, and hearing the screams as the elevators drop already sets you up for like, I don't know if I want to go on this today. This is am I ready for this?
Absolutely. Yeah, that queue really begins when you turn that corner on Sunset Boulevard and start walking down Sunset Boulevard, because you are drawn as designed to that attraction, and you can hear it and you see it. It's all set up so perfectly.
Yeah, I think the Tower of Terror is one of the few rides that I do hesitate to go on every time, because it terrifies the bonkers out of me. But I love the queue so much that it's part of it for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is unsettling. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's wonderful. That's just the queue.
Yeah.
So it's setting you up for that perfect experience and setting you up for that world. Again, it's all about that world building, and this queue really does it.
Agreed. Well, I'm so glad that you chose it for your number one. It's a perfect number one choice, Adam.
It really is, isn't it? But Patrick, that takes us to your number one.
My number one couldn't be more opposite than the Tower of Terror. I am going with Toy Story Midway Mania as my favorite queue.
I don't see the difference.
They're both horrifying. Now, again, for me, I think the reason why this is number one and all of my top three and up are because every single moment, every single inch of this queue is absolutely detailed from floor to ceiling, like literally from floor to ceiling. There isn't a moment that isn't detailed to be Andy's bedroom, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, taking that 2D world, even though it looks 3D without 3D glasses when you're watching it, and translating it must be quite the feat, and they do it so successfully in this queue.
So successfully. I mean, you definitely feel like maybe the movie has just ended, and now instead of going to the credits, you're going into the movie itself. It's really, really beautiful. And of course, just like Toy Story Land itself, you are shrunken down to the size of a toy. Interestingly, for me, I wonder if it was more successful before Toy Story Land, because you're already experiencing the oversizedness of the world around you. Yeah. So going into the attraction isn't quite as a surprise as it was before, but it's still beautiful to me.
That's a great point, Patrick. The benefit that this queue has is that you're cradled or completely covered by Toy Story theming, whereas in the land, you're dealing with actual natural elements in combination with this kind of more flat experience. So yeah, the queue really is something completely special and different from the land itself.
For sure. And as I said, floor to ceiling, you're surrounded by these wonderful, wonderful toys and games and colors and sound, and not just made up toys and games, right? They're actual items that exist for real, like checkers and Scrabble and Barrel of Monkeys and Tinker Toys, all assembled to create this enormous carnival. And it really and truly feels like something a kid would have built, right? It's so, the randomness and the chaos of it is definitely, I can see myself having built that at 5, 6, 7 years old, right? I feel like I for sure would have, and maybe have done something like that. It is, like I said, a bit chaotic, but because of the nostalgia feeling behind all of these actual elements from your childhood, the chaos doesn't feel overwhelming. It actually feels a little bit warm and welcoming. And who doesn't love the Toy Story soundtrack? It's so beautiful and fun and energetic. You can't be in a bad mood when you're in the queue for Midway Mania, I feel like.
It is such a fun, exciting, colorful experience, and it completely transports you into the world of those movies.
Exactly. And there's just enough fun surprises as well that are spread out throughout the queue. There's always something new and fun to look at. So it's never boring, right? It never really repeats itself. There's always something different. Even if you're seeing another Scrabble board, it's used differently in the next time you see it. It's not the same pattern that you saw before. And then, the enormous Mr. Potato Head, amazing animatronic. It's absolutely beautiful. And the fun Etch-a-Sketch where you're guessing words. There's just a comedy behind it that is so fun and lovely and welcoming and warm. As I said, I think Yeah, I've said it before, but there's no way to not have fun when you're in this queue. There's always something to do and look at.
And think about the fun that the Imagineers must have had in creating this queue. I mean, attraction aside, which is wonderful, and I'm sure the Imagineers had fun with that as well. Mm-hmm. But the queue itself, where the Imagineers took combinations of toys that we all grew up with and put them together in very fun ways to create walls and ceilings, and elements that you walk through. It must have been so fun for them. I can only imagine what the kind of blue sky idea for the queue itself was. It must have been just full of so many unused ideas.
Yeah, for sure. I want to believe that they were just like put in a room full of toys and built a for real fort using all of the toys and just to see what they could come up with. It's really cool. And something fun to do, I always look for these. Throughout the queue, there are these Viewmaster discs that if you look up close, they're actually cells from Disney movies. They're really cool to see.
Again, this is a great example of keeping you entertained in a queue, giving you some things to do, but more so just setting up the story, taking you into that world and keeping you there to make sure that you're all set up for the attraction itself.
And as you said before, for a couple of these, like Peter Pan, it's staying so true to the film itself. It doesn't veer away from the attraction or from the Toy Story world that is so specific and so near and dear to people's hearts.
Yeah. This is a great choice for number one.
Thank you so much. I think we crushed it with the cues today, Adam.
We did really, really good, and I'm proud of us.
So proud. Talk to me about some of your also-rans.
Well, there's an extensive list here, Patrick. I'm assuming that a lot of the cues for the attractions I'm about to list are probably cues that you considered as well. Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom.
Yes, for sure. I finally actually took it off my list because if you'll remember, when you're in the full queue, there are so many moments where kids and adults can make these loud clanging noises with like the pots and the bells, and it gives me a headache. I hate it. I hate that part of it, but the queue is really beautiful.
That takes me back to a story we may have talked about on the podcast before, but there was one fateful night when Patrick and I were in line for Big Thunder Mountain in Walt Disney World. And if any of you have been in that building, there's just so many loud noises children can make with various objects. We were probably maybe a little hangry. It was the end of the night. It was very hot in that building. We had it officially.
Oh, several children were almost murdered in that queue that night. It was a real the night the lights went out in Texas situation.
Yeah, so also on my list, Star Tours, The Adventure Continues. I love that queue. I think it's so funny, the announcements over the loudspeakers, the way they kind of set you up for the fact that you're going to be on this experience as part of a transportation company. It's so well done. Rise of the Resistance, obviously a game-changing queue, but that was one in particular where I was like, where does the queue end and the line begin? Because once you see Rey, or even a little bit before you see Rey, the hologram, the queue's over, but you're still walking and you're still kind of queued, right?
Yeah, I would agree. That's exactly why I didn't put it in mine as well. Because if you take away that part of it, like, right, if you consider Rey being the start of the attraction, then the rest of the queue is cool. But again, it has that sort of Indiana Jones monotonous walking through a cave feel to it. So that's why I didn't make it on my list.
I also had the Haunted Mansion, the Disneyland Haunted Mansion specifically, Space Mountain in Disneyland with that wonderful room you walk into before you get on the ride vehicles. And then I love the Big Thunder Mountain in Disneyland because you're outdoors the entire time, and at night, like kind of weaving through those rocks and everything is just so beautiful. And again, you're not trapped in a building with a bunch of children making noises, Patrick.
That will ruin anything for me is loud banging noises.
Yeah, me too. What about you? Were there any attractions that I had listed or haven't listed that almost made your list?
I think you nailed most of them. I almost added the Splash Mountain queue, but actually just the outside of it. I actually there's something really relaxing, even though it's just winding ramps basically, but being outside and being able to sort of, if you if you listen close enough, there are like little chipmunk conversations that are happening. It's it's really funny. But again, it's all kind of similar, and so it wasn't unique enough to be added to this list that I had anyways.
That's a good point, though. The sounds in the Splash Mountain queue can be, I mean, there's the music, obviously, instrumental versions of the music, but then also those little critter noises, Patrick, are so cute.
Yeah, that's something I brought up, I think, when I did my trip report, that is really lovely about the distancing in the lines that I'm going to miss and the lower capacity is that you're able to hear and see a lot more of the queues. There are things that I noticed on this past trip that I had never noticed before.
Well, I think if we've proved anything, it's that Disney really takes theming to the next level, and especially in more modern times has really embraced the idea of storytelling from the moment you enter the queue for the attraction.
And I think that really sets Disney apart from many other theme parks. I'm looking at you, Universal. There are some exceptions. I'm thinking like Men in Black, right? That queue is exceptional. But in general, Disney really takes their queues pretty seriously, whereas a lot of other places, it's just a line, really, until you get into the attraction.
Right. When did we start calling them queues, by the way?
When people from England started coming to Disney.
That's it. They infiltrated our culture and we appropriated what we wanted.
That's right. It's Once Upon a Scream's fault.
Well, we would love to hear what queues you're drawn to in the Disney parks, what queues you really enjoy, or you know what? Are there queues that you just don't like at all? Please let us know. You can reach out to us on social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast.
Or you can let us know where you prefer to wait by sending us a voice memo or an email to info@gazetothed.com. Let's say Disney does, in fact, instill a lot more virtual queues. They're going to have so much space to fill. I'm thinking like The Little Mermaid. That queue is a full attraction.
Yeah.
Like you could fit in several attractions in that queue. Are they going to start tearing out some of the queues and adding more attractions?
Interesting. You've made a very valid case for virtual queues. The space it will give us all to have more attractions in the parks.
That's right. So many more places to eat, you know?
Is that what it's all about?
That's what it's all about. More fudge shops, please.
Give me a virtual queue to fudge, please.
Not what I thought you were going to say. It almost sounded dirty.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Adam, to you. Hey, Adam, to you. That's it. I'm not going to do the rest of it.
Where is my cake?
I put it in a zoo.
Okay.
That's all I could come up with. That's Quick D, everybody.
That's why we do this segment, for hilarious jokes like that.
Hysterical.
Yeah, but Patrick's right. He's actually correct. It is Quick D time. We've reached the end of the episode. That means it is a fish Quick D time. This week, we are doing Quick D, Marry, Kill, Disney Plus and Chill, but we're putting a little spin on it this time.
That's right. We're spicing it up a little bit. We're mixing it up. We're spicing it up. We're making a cake out of it, you know?
Yeah, you got to keep things interesting when you've been in a relationship as long as ours. We've been friends for a really, really, really long time.
Too long.
That expiration date passed 3 years ago. All right. So as I said, we're putting a twist on it. And the twist goes a little something like this. In what Disney queues would you want to get married? Would you want to kill or murder in? And would you want to Disney Plus and chill in, which, you know, means have the relations in?
The relations. I like it.
Yes, fast pass to fast ass in a queue. Patrick,
That was dirty.
All right, Patrick, you are kicking us off. Which Disney queue do you want to get married in? Which Disney queue do you want to murder in? Which Disney queue do you want to Disney Plus and chill in? Splash Mountain, Patrick. Space Mountain, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Big Thunder Mountain, Patrick. The mountains.
Oh, dear. Well, right off the bat, I know exactly where I want to murder somebody, Adam.
Oh, where's that?
Splash Mountain, of course. I think it seems very clear when you enter that barn. So many weapons to choose from. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre in there, I think, already.
I was going to say, Disney setting itself up for a true Halloween Horror Nights experience in that barn.
100%. And then you've got a raft ready to go to get rid of the body off of a waterfall.
You have a built-in alibi. It was the ride, not me.
Exactly. It says a lot about me that I have put this much thought into it prior to this game.
Yeah, you've really thought this through. I'm a little unnerved right now.
Well, it's a long queue. You have a lot of time to think about things.
Yeah. And what else are you going to think about but murder?
I'll tell you what else you're going to think about, Adam. That's marriage.
And where between Big Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain are you getting hitched?
I think due to process of elimination, so you'll have to wait for it for a second, I'm going to get married in Space Mountain.
Okay, space wedding.
A space wedding. Out of this world, really. You might say.
You might, yeah.
But the Space Mountain queue is just a long line, so it's really just like walking down the aisle forever.
That's great. The theme is set up for you already, obviously.
Theme is right there. Yeah, absolutely. And like marriage, the ride itself is horrifying, and you don't know what's coming next.
It's debilitating, right?
It really is. It's you can't put your hands up. You can't really put your head any further than a little bit left and a little bit right. Otherwise, you will die. Much like marriage. Marriage.
You're just crammed into something extremely uncomfortable.
It's true. So that's why I'm getting married inside of Space Mountain, which means I'm going to get busy in Big Thunder Mountain.
Because of cowboys?
Because of cowboys and really, I mean, just the phrase, a hoedown is really what you will say when I fall.
There will definitely be a hoedown, yes.
Yeah, yep. That's people scream that at me every time I trip. Hoedown. But yeah, the cowboy. I mean, listen, it's a sexy ride, I think.
It's probably the sexiest ride in any Disney park, right?
Yeah. And what's more sexy than a mining town that is now full of ghosts, which is really the story of Big Thunder Mountain.
And a goat with a stick of dynamite in its mouth.
Can't think of anything hotter than that.
I am beside myself right now. I'm climbing up the walls. I'm so dorny, Patrick.
Oh, I thought that phrase was going away. Clearly not.
No, it lives forever.
Great. So those are my options. Those are my choices.
I think you nailed this. Absolutely.
Well, in Big Thunder Mountain, I sure did.
Hoedown.
Nailed it. All right, Adam, are you ready for your choices?
I am indeed.
All right, Adam, your options are Enchanted Tales with Belle, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, you've taken this to a child level.
Very, very fun. And The Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Where, oh, where, Adam, will you be getting married? Will you be really ruining a ride for everybody else and murdering somebody?
Yeah. Well, I've actually never experienced Enchanted Tales with Belle.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to start with murder. And I'm going to do it in the queue for Enchanted Tales with Belle.
Listen, I have done Enchanted Tales with Belle.
Yeah.
I love it. Great attraction. But there are some people you want to murder while you're in the line. I understand that feeling.
So it would be validated then. Like everyone around me would be like, yeah, that was the right call.
Yeah. And lots of places, lots of like chests and rooms and cabinets to hide a body.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's really good to know because I will want to dispose of that body before I actually experience tale that Belle is going to tell me. So
Yeah.
Okay, I feel validated.
Great. Great.
Okay, so murder in Enchanted Tales with Belle. That leaves me with Mary and Disney Plus and Chill. I'm going to get married in The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Okay, that's a great choice.
It feels wholesome. It
Yeah.
feels like I'm celebrating a lifestyle I want to lead, and I encourage my partner to lead as well, and that is one of pure gluttony. So I feel like it's like looking towards our future, and our future is poo.
Isn't it just?
Yeah. So that's where I'm getting married. That means I'm going to Disney Plus and Chill in the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
Great. Explain yourself on that one.
Well, you know what they say. When those carts are a-rockin', don't come a-knockin'.
That old tale. That old enchanted tale. That will do it for this episode of Gaze Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gazedothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gaze Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. Continue the conversation after this episode on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast. Submit your questions or show ideas to info@gazedothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See ya real soon.